Hey guys, Primal Chaos here, and look, last week I thought, why not delve into a little bit of Tool? I'm a bit of a Tool fan, and I'm not super familiar with the latest album, so it's a really good opportunity to do some reaction videos that are still honest and upfront. Now, I got to fall on my own sword here. When I was right in the throes of COVID illness at the time, and one thing I forgot was to balance the audio, so I apologize. The last song I did, Descending, it was a little bit quiet with the band audio, and I apologize for that. If I could upload it again and it wouldn't be sort of weird, then I would do it. But you know what, I like to wear my mistakes on my sleeve, so hopefully it didn't disrupt your experience too much last time. Now, because of that, I thought, you know what, let's do Tempest, right? It's another song I'm not super familiar with. I've probably heard it in passing because, as I explained in the last video, I have a funny relationship with Tool where I like to let their material find me at the right time. I don't like to chase it out. I'm still very much sort of getting into 10,000 Days. After not long before that, doing a really sort of personal deep dive into Lateralis and things like that. So it's one of those things where I've got all the time in the world to get into all the Tool songs, and I've been slowly sort of taking in when at the right time, taking it on board as it comes. And so the new album I've sort of had on the back burner for a while, and I'm really looking forward to doing this because one of the best ways to sort of create the right mood to get into the songs is to do these analyses. Really sit down and listen to them critically, and it sort of kickstarts that process. And so after I did Descending the other day, now I really want to get into Tempest. Now, the only thing I really know about Tempest is pretty sure they won a Grammy for it, right? Like that was best rock performance or something like that. And I remember when that happened, I was like, right on, Tool won a Grammy. Nice. But yeah, I don't know if I'll recognize the audio at all or anything like that. All I know is that I'm in for some Tool and I'm down for that any day of the week. There was something else I wanted to mention before starting. No, maybe that's it. All right. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Now, look, I know this is the Holy Land, right? I know that this is a passion for a lot of people, but just understand there's going to be times where I stop the track, okay? If you want to listen to Tempest without gaps in it, go listen to the track yourself. There's no point me even being here sitting in this chair giving any kind of analysis if I'm not allowed to stop the track and talk every once in a while. I know it kills some of you. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? It's a reaction channel, but look, to be fair, I understand where you're coming from. Just when it's getting into the vibe and you're starting to feel like the warm honey of Tool just washing across you, that's when I usually press stop, and it drives you crazy. And I get it, I do. But I also have this desire to, add value to what you're watching, to maybe call on a little bit of my own personal experience to maybe elucidate some of you with some things you may not be aware of or you hadn't considered. And that's the whole purpose of these videos. So if you do me this one solid and sit through whatever bullshit I'm going to put on top of your favorite song, you never know, you might get something more out of it, and you might find a deeper relationship with the song afterwards. And you've got all the time in the world to listen to the track back to back later on. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so yeah, that's got to be Danny, right, with his pads, because it sound at first you hear it sounds like he's hitting like some sort of a I don't know, like a it's not obviously a cymbal or something, maybe like one of those bowls, like the thing, whatever it is. It's a resonant metallic object, right? But then it's pitched, and it's pitched perfectly. I don't think it's any kind of a pitched percussion thing. I think he's using his sample pads. If it is Danny, it seems like it would be, because these guys typically only record what they can play live, to a large degree anyway. And I could just picture him there, playing that melody on his digital pads. But man, the interplay of the two rhythms there is really nice. I was trying to count it, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm terrible at counting measures. I just get turned around all the time. Let's go back a little bit, because I want to hear when that comes back in. So that's in 5/4. Yeah, it's all in 5/4, right? Just so casually swoops back in. So disorienting. Yeah, right. I have, that hook is really familiar. I've definitely heard this before. But there's so much groove there. It's not, look, I know Maynard can pretty much sing across any rhythm, right? He has to be able to, but that's it feels more groovy than he'd normally do. You're trying to lull us in before the havoc begins in a dubious state of serenity. It's not unusual for him. It just, something about it just seems let me put it this way. I can see why this is probably considered the single. Fear Inoculum was obviously the big release, but if there was one considered to be a single as far as this is the one that won the Grammy, it definitely has some popular music influence in just the guitar riffs that are pretty squared up, and Maynard's kind of, seems like he's going for a more hooky flavor on this one, and it's real interesting. I like it. Let's go back. Ghost notes, man. Oof. Justin. So that part through there, now guitarists turn off, you all know this, but for everyone else out there, which is a lot of people, what happened right there with Adam's sound is that he turned on like what's called a wah pedal, right? It's what gives it that wow, wow, wow. It's almost like a mute on a trumpet. And he's brilliant at using it because essentially what it is, it's a pedal that has, like, think about an equalizer, right? Where you can turn up the treble or you can turn up the bass. What a wah pedal does is it has a peak somewhere around the mid range, usually about 1000 hertz, 1K. Which is known for being kind of like a boxy sort of sound, particularly with guitar. But when you press the pedal, what it does is it sweeps that. If you can imagine, the EQ curve has like a hump in it where it's like they push up a certain range of the frequencies, right? Here's your bass, here's your treble. In the middle, they've got this hump. And when you press the pedal down, it pushes that up and down. And so it sweeps, when you move your foot, it sweeps that peak up and down, so it affects different parts of the signal. And what you get out of that is this kind of crying sound, which is why some of the wah pedals are known as crybaby wahs, because they sound like they're going wow, wow, you know, as you press the pedal down. And so it seems like what Adam does is he seems to sit it in one place and just uses that sort of boxy kind of aesthetic that it provides around the mid-range of where a wah sits, right? And then when you start pushing it up and down, and so he is manipulating it and getting that wah sound, but he's doing it really subtly. It's kind of interesting because there's a couple of different ways you can use a wah pedal, and because it's hard to coordinate. So you're playing guitar and you're thinking about that, and then you've got your foot, which is normally going to have a natural sort of tap to it. You're tapping your foot to play in time, right? So now you have to go against that impulse. I mean, you can use your wah pedal like that, where you're just pulsing on the beat and you'll get like a wow, 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 wow sort of effect, right? But the real masters of the wah pedal can dissociate that wanting to tap your foot sensation and use it as an expression, a separate expression, to be able to manipulate subtly the sound that you're playing with the guitar. That is a lot more challenging. It's a bit more of a knack to be able to do that, in the same way that, you know, Danny's the octopus and he can play, you know, 5 different rhythms with 4 different limbs. The ability to use a wah effectively is a little bit like that. You have to detach your leg so that you can move your foot with what your brain's telling you need to manipulate that guitar sound with, you know. And it's tricky, but you can hear he's using it real subtle. Like the sound kicks in, you can hear it's a wah, but then he's only embellishing certain notes. And that in itself is really creative, and it's a talent. It really is. Let's go back and hear a bit more. Before we get into that next passage, one thing that I really like about Tool, and I always have, at first when you first listen to Tool, depending on which song it is and stuff like that, obviously, but for the majority of it, one thing you notice if you're interested in sound production and stuff like that is the mix is a little unusual. Maynard is not placed as he would be for a rock singer or a pop singer or something. He's sort of pulled back in the mix at a distance and with an enormous amount of space around him. He's EQ'd thin and narrow to essentially leave room for everything else, because as we all know, Maynard doesn't consider himself a front man of the band, right? That's evidenced by the fact that he's always standing at the back. Every time I've ever seen him, he's been back there behind the stage, or, you know, on a level with, you know, Danny on one side, him on the other, or something like that. But what's interesting about this mix is if you listen to it with headphones and just close your eyes and listen along with me, it's remarkable how much room there is in the mix, because everything's dry. There's no huge sweeping reverbs, and you know, 90% of the time with any sort of music, pop or rock or metal or whatever, you'll have this big compressed vocal which sits right in the middle of the mix, and it's fat and it takes up a lot of room, and then you have to sort of strategically place everything else around it so that everything sort of occupies its space. So with Tool, it seems like they start the mix with this concept of you're sitting in Danny's seat, right? The drums are all right there, and you can hear like the stereo soundstage is pretty wide, but it's all, the drums are all there. When he does a roll, you hear it go from one side to the other, which is great because he's got so much percussion going on all the time, and it's not sort of left or right heavy, it's sort of all over the place. So then, you know, you've got the bass will sit sort of low, but down here occupying the same sort of region as your kick drum and snare drum. Then you'll have Adam's stuff. He's usually double tracked to be on both sides, which is nice because he often has differences between the two. Nothing outlandish where he wouldn't be able to perform it live, but like, you know, you'll hear one of the guitars will feed back to, you know, to like a squeal, and the other one doesn't, and things like that. There's like these deliberate choices that sort of keep it a little bit off center. But in between, you've got your guitars over here, and you've got your bass down here, and you've got your drums spread across there, and you've got Maynard occupying just a little chunk right in your eye line, right? And then there's room everywhere else. It's like all of these negative spaces, these negative pockets. And the great thing about that is that it allows the mix to breathe. It allows you to sort of hear the punchiness of everything. And Tool has this amazing ability to take, you know, 3 simple instruments and a vocal and make it sound like a 7-piece band is playing, but they mix it in such a way that even with all of that chaos going on, there's so much room for everything to exist in its own space. And so it allows you to easily pick things apart. Like that's the beauty of these mixes, is you can hear exactly who's playing what. There's never any confusion like, oh, am I hearing the bass player play that or the guitarist? Or, you know, there's always clarity. And I don't mean sterility, I mean clarity. Like there's a punchy, even clearness to the musical message that's being pumped into your ears. It's so good. Actually, I really want to talk about that. Let's go back, listen to what Adam's doing. What I want you to listen for in this part is just how organically he's playing the parts, right? He's bending notes slightly out of key so they chorus. He's doing like these double, it's gonna be hard to, but he's basically doing like where he's playing more than one note. And then he'll do these weird chaotic bends, and I have no idea what he's actually playing, but something along those lines where he's playing parts of a chord. It might even just be like the, like the bottom part of the chord, but you can hear him just sort of just working on maybe just pulling one of the notes out of key and stuff like that. The idea of it is that he doesn't want it clean and precise. He wants it to be messy and organic, and it just breathes life into the song like that, right? So listen, have a listen, see what you can pick up. Straight back into the riff. So cool. Slides. You know what's great about this? You can hear that he's in the room with that amp. Hey, a lot of bands these days, just for convenience, are doing pretty much exactly what I do, and that is to record directly into your PC with some sort of like an amp emulator, right? Because setting up your amp and miking it in a house or a small studio apartment or whatever is just not practical or possible. And honestly, you can emulate some amazing guitar sounds and you can get some pretty realistic things, but what you can't emulate is the way that the pickups interact with the speaker and the vast amount of volume sound pressure coming out of that speaker, and the electromagnetic resonance of the strings and the pickups when it cycles back through itself, and you get these sustained harmonics that only seem to work if you're, letting the amp or the speaker interact with the guitar. In the same way, if you hold a microphone too close to a speaker, it'll squeal and it sounds awful. With a guitar, the way that their electronics are set up, it doesn't actually sound unpleasant. And it's that sound you hear when a guitar plays a note and it rings out and it slowly turns into like a squeal or a scream. That's kind of like that's feedback, right? And he's playing chords and you can tell that he's in the room with the amp and you can hear it, the sound sort of resonating back in through the guitar and forming that feedback loop, so those chords sustain beautifully and they start to break up into chaos. Yeah, the giveaway is chords don't get louder over time. They tend to go bang, but his chords are going bang. That's the feedback loop, right? Masterfully executed. only Danny can be playing what seems like a fairly consistent and, complicated tom rhythm. And then somehow another arm grows out and it reaches over onto the cymbal bell and starts playing some sort of a polyrhythm. So, I mean, was he doing it with his foot? Like, did his leg come over the top and just on that bell? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know, there wasn't a lot going on there. He could easily just sort of do that, but it just was such a seamless transition, right? To be able to, I'm sure he was using two hands to do it, and then all of a sudden he just takes over with this hand and then starts, I mean, I'm not a drummer, I know, but these things still bewilder me. Let's go back. Natural vocals. Hang on. I was just saying, it's interesting he's got such a natural vocal. It sounds so raw. And then as soon as I said it, they started putting in this weird slapback echo. It sounds like he's in a canyon. And then some reverse vocals come in as well. Okay, so let's see what I'm trying to say. When he comes in, you can hear how dry it is. Then he gets a little bit louder. Hear that sort of vocal, like there's an echo going on now. There's some reverses in there. So cool. Spoilers, guitar solo. See, again, this is what I was talking about before. He's sort of playing super organically there. Like he's overbending notes and he's sort of bending them out to the point where they sort of it kills the note, like into like a harmonic sort of as he bends it over the fret or over the edge of the fretboard or something like that. There's some wildness going on there that's just really hard to... what that was. As much as I always say I don't like to count the measures because I'm not good at it, you still find yourself attempting to try and rationalize what's going on. Everybody's playing different rhythms, and I can't even find the one. I can't even like just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. There's so many accents on so many different beats. Every time I think I'm onto it, I hear another beat. I go, no, that was the one. I just missed it. And by that time, I'm too late. I'm hats off to all you guys who do that sort of stuff. I can't do it, eh? There's so much. I just get swept up in the pulse more than anything, right? Maybe that's the secret of Tool. There isn't a one. Everybody has their own one. Hit you straight in their heads. We'll be right back. You know, one of the best tools for combating colorblindness is Enchroma Glasses. I'm so sorry. 1 in 6 guys, 1 in 200 women are colorblind, and there's something you can do about it. You can click on the link in the description, go to Enchroma and take a colorblind eye test, find out what kind of colorblindness you might have. And while you're there, pick up some corrective lenses. They've got frames to suit everybody. While you're there, use the code CHAOS and check out and you'll get 10% off. Oh, I feel like I'm getting worse at doing this. Tell them Primal Chaos at you. So there's a certain mastery to how these guys produce songs. We all know it. We all know that they stand out above other bands in regards to composition and, you know, the power of their message and the power of their, just sonically, the power of their music and the tribalism that it evokes, right? There's plenty of bands who are as good as Tool musicianship-wise. There's plenty of bands, plenty of individual musicians who can outplay these guys. And I know that that's sacrilege to say, but it's just facts, right? But when you put these 4 guys together, they come up with something that is undeniably powerful and unique. And I think that's at the core why Tool is who they are. Some people don't get it. Maybe in time they will. Like I said, life is long. Sometimes it takes time for the music to find you. You know, for everyone out there who's a dyed-in-the-wool Tool fan who only listens to Tool, there's some other guy saying Tool are overrated. I objectively feel like that's just not a possibility. Subjectively, I feel that objectively it's not a possibility. But you know what? That's the thing. It takes different strokes, right? Some people aren't going to get it, and they're not supposed to. It's not part of their journey, right? And you should let those guys live, as much as they should let Tool fans live. But either way, look, this is getting into that whole online turf war kind of bullshit. Now, I was looking through the lyrics. What's the song about? I'm trying to remember. The last couple of years has been such a blur, and I'm trying to remember, you know, what was going on in the world when Maynard would have been writing this. And the only thing I can think of, I don't think Corona was a thing yet. I think it was more a case of the political unrest in the United States. It would have been Trump times. It would have been a lot of political going back and forth and rhetoric. And much as it is now, if you jump on Twitter right now, you'll find a lot of politics. Now that political lens has shifted towards Corona and everybody's management of such things and anti-vaxxing and this and that and weird reinvigoration of racist ideologies and all this sort of stuff. But what you find when you look online is everybody having an opinion and nobody entitled to have one, right? And I think what Maynard's referring to here, and again, I don't like analyzing lyrics because it really is up to the individual to formulate their own opinions on it because it's poetry, right? But for me personally, it's about that political online social intercourse that's just pure chaos, right? Nobody is speaking with any kind of authority, and the people who have some sort of authority are being dismissed, and things like that. And I mean, like the very like expression, like a tempest by definition is a storm, right? It's typically a bad storm, like almost like a typhoon, right? And that's what this is. It's a hailstorm of shit, you know, that everybody has to endure every day, and everybody is part of the problem, right? But like I think it's also about the powers that be trying to coerce the masses into doing what they want, and the rhetoric they're using to essentially bamboozle the community into doing what they want. You try to lull us in before the havoc begins into a dubious state of serenity, right? Acting all surprised when you're caught in the lie, that seems political. You know, we know better. I mean, Maynard might have mentioned what this is about. I don't think he would have. He typically doesn't do that. I think he usually leaves it up to the interpretation of the listener. Control your delusion, insane and striking at the random, victim of your certainty, right? So it's only you have the power to understand that you don't know, right? You've got feelings, you've read things online, you feel like you've formulated an idea of how things work. But it's okay to step back and say, I don't know. And, you know, it's not worth me knowing, because at the end of the day, I've got no power over this. And anybody who's ever tried to convince someone of anything through a social media battle, I guess, knows that you don't have any power there, right? You're better off stepping away from it and just letting it, you know, understanding that you don't know everything and understanding that maybe your voice isn't necessary as well. That's some realization I came across. This is ironic, being that I have a reaction channel, but as far as political discourse and stuff goes, I realized a long time ago that I'm not adding anything to the conversation. I'm not qualified to, and it's best to stay away. And ditching Twitter is one of the best things you can do for your psychological health, believe me. But anyway, we're getting off topic here. Look, at the end of the day, Tool is always about sending some kind of a message. And, you know, that's Maynard's piece of the puzzle, and he did what Maynard does. But the rest of the band themselves, there was definitely an energy there that sort of cooperatively works with that message, in that the song slowly builds up. When I mentioned that I wasn't sure what was going on rhythmically because everybody had their own part to play and everybody was playing on a different accent and a different pulse, that's the Tempest, right? They're evoking that sense of chaos and disorder and power, right? It starts off with everybody, you know, doing Tool stuff, but still pretty much in line, locked in with each other. And then the song slowly descends into this whirlpool of chaos. And that's what I mean when I say masterful, right? Not everybody can do that. A lot of people write a chorus and a verse and they glue it together, put a bridge in there and an outro, and they've got a song. Some people create a masterpiece of a million spinning plates that all sort of work together and become like a clockwork algorithm that makes the sum of all the parts way more valuable, right? They take a couple of cogs, put them together with a bunch of other cogs, and they end up with a Rolex, you know? And yeah, this is what these guys do. What a great song. I'm glad I finally got around to doing some Tool. I promise you this time I'll mix it better. Look, if you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to buy me a coffee. I'll put a link in the description. And also like, share, follow, subscribe, all of those nice things. Let's build this community up. If you have anything to say about this song or anything you agree or disagree with, jump in the comments, let me know. And yeah, thanks guys. I'll catch you on the next one.